Trevor Alonso, and this is my review of Never Hike Alone, the Friday the 13th fan films. These are fan films you can watch on YouTube. The first one is Never Hike Alone, which came out in 2017. They made a prequel called Never Hike in the Snow, which came out last October. I'm going to review these in order. Never Hike Alone is about a hiking YouTuber named Kyle McLean, who hikes alone to a lake. He then notices there's an area that's not on the map and decides to go through it, and it's pretty well closed off. As he goes through it, he finds the remains of Camp Crystal Lake. He finds a cabin. As far as he knows, Jason is just a legend. He is aware of the events of the first movie, which makes me think that a lot of people think that those events happen and the rest is just a ghost story. Then he is attacked by Jason, which forces Kyle to use his skills to survive. I have to say, this is really great. It's actually better than some of the official Friday the 13th films. Don't get me wrong, I still like the bad ones. These Hike Alone movies are made really well. They're actually movie quality. I think the people who made these should be working on the next Friday the 13th, once that lawsuit is over, which has been going on for years. Okay, I'll admit, at first I thought, okay, how are they going to keep this going with one guy against Jason? This may not be as bloody, because he's either going to live or die, and that's determined how that kind of goes with the blood. But I think they pulled it off. They had a lot of build up to Jason. They played with the fact that we know Jason's there, but he doesn't. And they kind of played with the fact that he thinks it's just a legend. Like at one point you hear coyotes fighting, and you think, oh, Jason got him. And it's never clearly said what happened, but it kind of goes with that whole idea. The guy playing Kyle does a really great job. This whole movie kind of relies on him and Jason. The guy playing Jason is also the director. So he's pulling double duty. That's a hard job for him because he's got to put on all the makeup, make sure everything is going well behind the camera, then be Jason. And despite the fact there's only one guy in this, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but they made this pretty bloody. Now, it's not the bloodiest Friday the 13th, because there's only one guy, but as far as what they did with it, it's bloody. I also like that they made Jason more scarier again, because in some movies where they try to make him scary, they kind of do it for a little bit, and then they're like, okay, Jason's here, so we don't have to make him so scary, but we do have to make him a threat. There's a lot of subtle hints to different Friday the 13th movies, which any fan can pick up on. Even though this is an hour long, it felt like a regular full-length movie. It had good pacing. I sort of like the new music that they have for this. I understand with fan films they're either going to go fully with the old music or they're not at all or sort of in the middle. And some fan films do a not at all so they don't use anything from the past. But I'm glad when Jason showed up they used a which is a big thing with Friday the 13th. And they made this pretty well to where you don't really have to see any Friday the 13th movie and still enjoy it. But if there was one I was going to recommend to watch before watching this, I would say Friday the 13th Part 6, Jason Lives, which is one of my favorites. I like the look of Jason in this. It's not really anything from the past movies, but yet it's something that you definitely recognize as Jason. And it's not like they picked like, oh, let's look at Part 4 and make that Part 4 costume. Or it's not like they were like, oh, okay, Jason from Part 7 all mangled up and you can see his spine. They're like, let's make our own Jason, but good enough and recognizable enough as Jason. And from what I understand, everybody calls this one Ghost Jason. Partly because he does a vanishing act like he does in the later movies, where he disappears in one spot and kind of reappears behind you. I do highly recommend this for any horror fan, or any Friday the 13th fan. I'll do spoilers after talking about Never Hike in the Snow. Okay, right before watching this, I rewatched the first one. I saw the first one when it first came out and a few times since, and decided right before doing this just to watch them back to back. Never Hike in the Snow takes place 3 months before the first one, so this is sort of a prequel, but not enough to throw you off. Not enough to be like, oh, well, that guy's gonna live, or this is gonna happen, or blah, blah, blah. Though that sort of happened with one character where I was like, okay, this one's shorter than the other one. It's 30 minutes long, and again, it feels longer. This one's also really well made. The pacing is amazing. Okay, the effects are really great in this one. This does seem bloodier. It starts off with Jason killing a teenage hiker, which isn't spoiling anything because it happens in the first couple of minutes. Okay, the plot for this one is a little bit different. It's not so much about hiking. In this one, it's more about the police covering up Jason's murders. I like how they brought back characters from Part 6. They brought back Deputy Cologne, which now he's a sheriff. Which seems like if the sheriff from Part 6 survived, things would be a little bit different, especially after facing off against Jason. It's great that they got back the actor who played him in Part 6 for this, which doesn't really happen in fan films. A lot of times it's just like, okay, let's get a buddy, or let's get somebody who looks close. So it's pretty cool to see they have the budget and the skills to bring back somebody from the actual movies. Again, they brought back the same actor from Part 6, Tom Matthews, who's always great in everything he's in. You know, kind of wish his career did a lot better. I mean, still good and decent, but like he should have been well more known. And I can't really talk more about it until I get into spoilers. So I am gonna say, the second one is just as scary as the first one. The plot is really good. They are planning to make 3 more, which as of now is gonna be called Never Hike Alone Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4. And I believe they have subtitles, and their main goal is to if you watch them all together, it's like one movie, which so far these 2 work as one movie. Now, watching them back to back, it's pretty good. In the second one, the director didn't play Jason again. From a rumor I heard, they were gonna get the guy who played Jason at the very end of Freddy vs. Jason, but due to scheduling conflicts, he wasn't able to come. Again, the music is great, and it really doesn't feel like they lost any footing between movies. Because sometimes on some fan films, when you see a second one or one they did later, it's like, oh, they're not as good as the first one, or they've definitely gotten better. It wasn't like they lost budget or something between the 2. Okay, now for spoilers. Okay, for the first one, Never Hike Alone. Kyle does get hurt, but he has to go back to his pack, which is left at the cabin, which means he has to go past Jason. And he has to sew up his leg. It's not like, well, he can just drive away, because if he doesn't treat his leg, he's going to get infected and something worse could happen. He goes back for his pack. He does confront Jason. Jason does end up stabbing him, while Kyle actually hacks into his neck. And it's a pretty good effect. Because at first you think Kyle's done for, but then you see Jason has an axe in his neck. And it's really cool. And they show him pulling it out, or just sort of move on. And Kyle is smart enough to run off. He gets picked up by paramedics. And there's 3 of them. There's a guy, there's a girl, they're kind of nameless characters, but their driver is Tommy Jarvis. He even says so on his shirt, and they even call him Tommy, so it's very clear Tommy Jarvis stayed there, became a paramedic. There's no telling how many victims he's treated of Jason. I knew he was going to be in the fan film sooner or later, but actually as I was watching it, I was thinking to myself, when is he going to show up? And when the paramedic showed up, I was like, oh, he might be a paramedic. And then they showed the guy and the girl, and I was like, okay, he's probably not going to be in this. Then the doors open, and it's Tommy. And it's so cool to see him there. It was like a big surprise. They actually save the hiker and drive off. But 2 of the paramedics get killed off. Now, for the second one, Never Hike in the Snow, it is more about covering up Jason's murders. And it's very clear that Tommy's trying to go after Jason, while Cologne is just trying to stop Tommy from ever talking about Jason. Like it's something they can just cover up and never talk about, and it would never happen. When clearly Jason is killing people. And it was nice to see that one scene where they're in the car, Tommy's arrested, and they're kind of spouting off a few bits from Part 6. At the end, a deputy does find a teenage boy body and Jason, and he tries to get Jason, but Jason ends up blowing his head off with a shotgun. Which, the way the scene was done, I expected something to happen to the sheriff, because he seemed like kind of a red shirt. They didn't say his name fully, and I also kind of thought, okay, this would be like Never Hike Alone, where he ends up getting away but wounded. Nope, he dies, and the movie kind of ends. I do kind of wonder if because they filmed this one this year, if coronavirus affected it and they were like, okay, we have to make it shorter or we have to do this or that. But I am looking forward to the next one, and the next one, and the next one. I do highly recommend these movies for any horror fan or any Friday the 13th fan. Today's a perfect day to watch it. So for Never Hike Alone, I give it a 10 out of 10 hockey mask. For Never Hike in the Snow, I do give it a 9 out of 10 just because it's shorter and it feels like there's a lot less, but also feels like there's a lot in this. I'm going to leave links for both of these movies in the description down below. I do recommend watching the behind the scenes of the first one, which is also on the same YouTube channel. And I also recommend watching Friday the 13th Part 6 right before this. I do have to say, these work as perfect sequels to Friday the 13th Part 6. I hope they bring more characters from that movie to this. Thank you for watching my video, and happy Friday the 13th.